NFC Championship, 49ers going into Philadelphia. Should be one hell of a game. We've got the Brock Purdy versus Jalen Hurts rematch from college. I think there's a little bit more at stake here, though, right? Let's get into this. Well, what is up, guys? Welcome to the Edge DFS. My name is Tyson Smith, joined by Ellie Hernandez. Ellie, how you doing, man? What's going on with you?
Doing pretty good. I guess I should let the audience know what we decided on for a name.
Yes.
So we ended up with Zariah Adrian Lily Hernandez.
Nice, dude. So, I love it. Yeah. I mean, Adrian. I wonder why.
Yeah. Well, obviously, I like the Greek reference, the Adriatic Sea there. And then there's this guy. His name is Adrian Wilson. Played for the Cardinals for a while. One of my favorite players of all time.
Love it, dude. That's awesome. I thankfully the wife let you do that. She gave you one there.
Yeah. She got the first name, so I got the middle names.
There you go. All right. Well, thanks for joining us, guys. We appreciate it. We are going to do obviously this show. We're gonna do the AFC Showdown show as well, and then we're gonna do the 2-gamer as well. So you'll get three shows out of us this week. We're going to do the showdowns first. That's going to allow us to really dive deep into these matchups. And then when we do the 2-gamer, we'll be ready to go. We'll already know what's kind of going on. We'll know some of the value. It feels like to me, even on Showdown here, the pricing it's obviously going to be much different, but the hierarchy of pricing is pretty similar between Showdown and 2-gamers. So that 2-gamer, I think we'll release probably Thursday morning, potentially, something like that, or maybe Thursday night or Wednesday night. Anyways, click like, click subscribe. You're going to want to have that notification bell on when we post those videos. We appreciate you guys. Let's get into this matchup, man. So San Francisco on a huge win streak. I think it's how many games? Like a ridiculous amount. Is it 13 games, 12 games? That's just ridiculous. That's crazy. With a third-string quarterback. I mean, Purdy, he did pretty good in that game last week. He did well enough to win him the game. That's all that really matters. But he's going up against Philly here. This is a really good defense. They got a great secondary. Their run defense isn't the best in the league, but it's not terrible. So what do you think about this total here? Now, we're recording this on Tuesday, midday. This might change. We have some injury news to talk about, but 2.5-point favorites at home. Philly is. They're the number 1 seed. They had the bye. It's a 46.5-point total. Thoughts on the total? Thoughts on the spread? It feels right to me.
Yeah, man. I think the total's right on. And honestly, I don't really have a strong lean either way on the over or the under on the 46.5 points. I really think that this could end up being more of a defensive matchup. It's the NFC Championship game. I think both teams are going to come out a little bit more conservative than we're used to seeing both of them all season and kind of just get a feel for how the game's going to go. But I do think Philly's going to end up winning. And honestly, I don't mind the spread either, 2.5 points. I think I would take Philly to cover that. If that goes up to 3.5, that's where I start to get a little bit scared. Then I think San Francisco would be able to cover a 3.5 spread. But as of right now, man, I think everything looks good. I do think Philly takes this game. They're just kind of on another level in the NFC, and as well as the Niners have done up until this point, it's hard. There's 7 weeks now of game film on Brock Purdy, and you'll start to see this over the summer. But there is a bit of a honeymoon period when it comes to these young quarterbacks, right? Nobody has game film on them. And now that you got 6-7 weeks of that, good defensive coaches are going to start to make adjustments. And this is for all the marbles, if you will. So I do expect Philly to come out and kind of sell out to stop Christian McCaffrey, which we'll probably get into in a little bit here. But I do think Philly ends up winning this game.
Yeah, I actually agree with you. I took the Cowboys to win that game the other night. They had their shot. It was a close game. The Cowboys choked that game away. They should have won that game. That was basically their game to win. Like they really had a couple of great opportunities. And look, that last play, there's a bunch of controversy. Yeah, I hear you, but I mean, who cares?
You
Like,
shouldn't have been there,
they shouldn't have
right?
even
Like
been in
there
the
was other stuff going up to that. You shouldn't have been up there and like what did bookie say? You don't why you running a play you don't practice. Well, you really don't have many plays to pick up 80 yards
Yeah.
in that situation.
Yeah, if you want to blame anybody, blame Dalton Schultz for forgetting that he's in the NFL and not in college and not putting that extra foot down. All right, we're gonna move past that. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time talking about the previous weekend. I felt like I profited, so hey, at the end of the day, that's all that matters. But I want to focus on this weekend now. I do think that Philly wins this game, but this is a really hard. Not only just a game, just NFL wise, just football wise to predict, but DFS wise, this is going to be really tough, man. The pricing is tough. There's really not a lot of value that we actually want to play. Everybody's sort of middle of the road when it comes to salary. Guys that you would hope were priced down a little bit. It's not happening. This is going to be tough. We're going to have to make some tough decisions. So let's get into our injuries here.
Yeah, just pain. It was pain everywhere.
So CMC, we saw him, we saw that calf that he was kind of working out there. Eli Mitchell ended up getting a lot of those carries to close that game out. He's questionable as well with a groin injury. Now, CMC to me, with that calf injury, he's going to play. He's going to be active. Eli Mitchell with a groin injury, we have to wait until later in the week to kind of figure out what's going on and how often he's practicing. But for an explosive running back with a groin injury, that's going to be kind of tough. So I kind of I'm not wishing that Eli Mitchell is out, but if he is out, it opens up a lot of value for us and makes it a little bit easier to figure out how to play these damn lineups. So thoughts on some of these questionables here. Jimmy Garoppolo's doubtful. Doesn't matter. If that dude is back by the time the Super Bowl comes around, if they make it, he's just going to be a glorified backup with a clipboard. There's no chance that guy plays. So thoughts on McCaffrey and Mitchell here?
Yeah, man. They're both questionable, and I fully expect them to play. I think they're pretty healthy. This is probably more just a smoke and mirrors thing than anything else to mess with kind of the Eagles' game plan. To be honest with you.
Yeah. So what do you think about this other side? There's really not a whole lot to talk about here. It looks like Lane Johnson, he had that groin injury. You kind of saw him messing with that. He's a big part of their offensive line. As of now, I don't see him listed questionable. But we'll have to check later in the week and see where he's at. But he should play. And then you got a guy like A.J. Brown. He was sort of limping late in that game. Obviously, I don't see him listed as questionable here. I see him listed questionable in other areas, like on Fantasy Cruncher here, he's listed questionable. Anyways, as we get further in the week, we'll know more. But anything jump out to you? Like, are you concerned that A.J. Brown is not going to get any run in this game?
Not really. But you bring up a good point. That's something that we'll need to monitor as the week goes on. So we don't have the Discord logo up yet, but go ahead and join the Discord. That's what will keep you up to date on any information. Or if you have any questions as we get closer to lock, we'll be releasing these videos a little bit early. So feel free to hop in there and see if we've made any adjustments as news comes out throughout the week.
Yeah, absolutely.
But nothing on this team on the Eagles side.
All right, well, let's just get right into this breakdown here. Break it down. All right, so Jalen Hurts is $11K. Brock Purdy, $9,400. That's a great price for Brock Purdy. We've seen his ceiling and what he can do. 35 fantasy points there against Seattle. Now Seattle has some pretty good rookie defenders there, but that second half they came out and absolutely annihilated them. 35 fantasy points. That I don't see that happening again in this game. You're more likely, I feel like, to get one of these 15 to 20 point outputs from him, and at 9,400. That feels like a pretty good value. He's getting projected, right around 17, 18 points right now. So thoughts on Purdy, and I feel like Jalen Hurts. You just have to play Jalen Hurts in this matchup. But the hard part here is Hurts, McCaffrey, A.J. Brown. Some of these you're going to have to make tough decisions in this game. So probably the easiest decision is going to be, hey, maybe I won't play Brock Purdy in this matchup, and I'll go out and get Debo, or I'll go out and get one of these other dudes. thoughts on the 2 quarterback builds?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's going to be really difficult to do the 2 quarterback builds if you're planning on playing Christian McCaffrey. So uh, if you are building with 2 quarterbacks, that's just something you need to keep in mind. If you have Christian McCaffrey, you're going to be limited to really a small handful of builds. So you're kind of limiting your overall options when you force all 3 of those guys in. And again, the same can be said if you eliminate McCaffrey and you're playing both quarterbacks. Uh, there's again because you have to eliminate a certain player. There's only a certain amount of builds that you're going to be able to get to with that. So just be creative. Feel free to overstack. Right? Maybe I don't know. Maybe you get Jalen Hurts, Quez Watkins, and a couple other really low-owned guys so that you can pay up for some Niners. But you're going to have to get creative if you play both guys because it's clear what roster construction you're going to need to do so.
It feels like to me...
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. It does make sense. It feels like to me Jalen Hurts is going to be the highest owned player. He's going to be the highest owned captain. And typically we'd see CMC being that guy, but because of the Q tag and the injuries, maybe it'll depress his ownership overall just a little bit. He's still going to be very popular. But to me, I think the best way to do this particular slate is to go middle of the road pricing wise at captain with high upside, like Goddard's, Devontae Smith's, guys like that have that high upside and can get you PPR and then be able to jam in all the studs in the flex. Because look, we're going to have to go balanced. I don't see a lot of value that I really am interested in. So the reason why I'm bringing all this up is because we got to make a decision on Jalen Hurts. I personally would rather play Jalen Hurts. If I had to make a decision between Hurts and CMC, probably Hurts, but I'm not going to make that decision. I'm going to probably play both of them. So let's get into running backs here. So CMC is 11.4K. If there's any week ever that you would fade CMC in a showdown slate, maybe this is the week, right? But it's not, the injury is just not, like, it was precautionary. So people are going to maybe people will be scared away, but I'm not scared away. He's still going to get you probably at least 17, 18 fantasy points. Typically speaking, he's probably going to get you in that low 20-point range. And in a showdown slate, you're going to have to have that output. Now, I'm not going to be interested in putting him at captain with that price tag, and I'm not interested in putting Hurts at captain with that price tag. So thoughts on McCaffrey here? Are you scared away from him at all with the injury? Because I'm not, and maybe actually we can take advantage of the fact that maybe his ownership will be a little bit lower than it should be.
Yeah, man. Look, I don't overthink guys like Christian McCaffrey anymore. When I was early on in my DFS career, you start to get fancy. Like, hey, maybe I can fade this guy, and that's how I can be different than everybody else. There's a reason why he costs so much, is because he consistently crushes it. Nice text messages there, buddy.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
But I love Christian McCaffrey. I'm gonna have as much exposure to him as I can possibly get. Again, with the idea in mind that you're gonna have to make a decision with the quarterbacks. But I don't know, man. Like, it's not clear to me what the value is on this slate yet. So I do think that there's going to be a natural tendency to fade Christian McCaffrey for some of the field here. So if his ownership comes suppressed at all, I will be over the field. But if he's sitting around 65, 70%, I'll probably be around 50 to 55% just because of overall roster limitations just from building with him.
Now, the interesting thing here is Eli Mitchell at 5,200. So he's questionable as well. We'll have to see how he's going throughout the week, if he's practicing or not. Most likely he's probably going to play, but if he doesn't, let me pull this up here. If he doesn't, it's probably a TDP situation at 200. And if Eli Mitchell does not play, or is questioned, like a game time decision, that I'm going to play a lot of TDP and maybe even look, if Eli Mitchell's not active, I bet you Tevin Coleman's active. So yeah, we got to keep an eye on that. That's why, join that Discord, and we'll talk about that as inactives come out in a week or so, or 4 days, 5 days, whatever it is. But to me, Eli Mitchell is interesting at 5,200. We've been talking about this a lot on these two gamers that we've been doing, CMC and Eli together. It's kind of worked. Like, he didn't have a great week last week, even though he got a lot. He's very touchdown dependent. He's not going to get you really any receptions, maybe a couple. But he's touchdown dependent, and if he gets you 10 fantasy points at that price tag, I feel like it's a pretty decent play. He's projected for under 5 fantasy points right now. So thoughts on Eli Mitchell? It's interesting at that 5,200 mark. You could put him at captain and maybe he falls in the end zone twice and get you maybe 15 fantasy points.
Yeah, I think Eli Mitchell's a fine 5,200 play. I don't know that I'm going to be prioritizing him, but if I'm in that range between 48 to 5,500, he's definitely going to be a piece that I slide into a couple of my builds. I do like him at captain, just and in a couple one-off lineups. If for whatever reason Christian McCaffrey is limited or doesn't have a great game, it is possible that Eli Mitchell, vultured a touchdown in the red zone or something along those lines. He happens to do that twice. Even if he only has 4 or 5 carries, I think he could be an optimal captain at 5,200. Real quick, I do want to talk about your boy Kyle Juszczyk, or however you say it. At 1,200, like he might actually end up being one of our top value plays at this point.
He
right?
is, yeah.
Like, I like him. I think he's going to give you a little bit of flexibility. There's another $200 guy that I'll play, but I think it has much lower ceiling or floor than a guy like Kyle. Kyle can at least get 2-3 fantasy points and then potentially get a touchdown or a red zone target. So I do like a little bit of exposure to him.
The thing about Juice is he's on the field a lot. Like this team is running 2 running back sets, 2 wide receivers, maybe 2 tight end sets. So he's on the field all the time. All you need is a random, play action on the goal line, throw it to him in the corner of the end zone, and you get 7, you end up with 7-8 fantasy points from him. And hey, at $1,200 with no value, that could be interesting to me. But I'm going to wait to see what these running backs injury situation is before obviously I make really any decisions at all. I'm not even going to touch building until, Sunday at 2 p.m. or 1 p.m. or whatever. I'm not going to touch that. All right, let's go to the other side. Oh, you know what? One more thing to mention. So you and I talked about this before we got on the show briefly. But if for some reason San Francisco is up by 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, I would expect to see more Eli Mitchell and have CMC sitting on the bench getting ready for the Super Bowl potentially. Obviously, they're not going to be, counting a W before this game is at zeros. But, you might see 1 or 2 extra drives with Eli Mitchell if San Francisco's winning this game. All right, let's go to the other side. This is always disgusting. Miles Sanders is 6,200. Kenneth Gainwell 4,800 and Boston Scott 3,200. So this is a clusterfuck, man. Boston Scott got a touchdown last week. Kenneth Gainwell got a touchdown last week. Miles Sanders didn't really do much. So at 6,200, Miles Sanders is an incredible play if we think that he can actually get goal line opportunities, if we think he can actually score touchdowns. Now, I think he's got 9 touchdowns, 11 touchdowns this year, as opposed to the previous year when he only had 1. And that was the whole narrative going into this season, that he just doesn't score touchdowns. But he hasn't scored a touchdown in 2, 4, 5 weeks? Is that right? Yeah, 5 weeks. And you look at all these, you look at his latest output here. Now, I get it. The Eagles were sort of, I wouldn't call it struggling, but they weren't looking amazing later in the year. So it's a little deceiving with him. But, he's getting projected for around 10 plus fantasy points as a median projection. Look at these outputs, man. I just don't see it. I think him in the flex is probably not something I'm going to do, and putting him at captain may be the way to go, because he's either going to get you 9 fantasy points or he's going to get you 30. I feel like that is the way this game is going to go down, and he's probably not going to get you more than 60% of the snaps. So thoughts on these running backs? Every one of these guys is in play, but I'm not excited to play a guy like Boston Scott, even if he scores a touchdown, which is not likely. He's got back-to-back touchdowns against the Giants. Well, guess what? We're not playing the Giants. We're playing the Eagles here. And it's most likely he's probably not going to do shit in this game. So what do we do with these running backs, man? This is really frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, I like Miles Sanders as captain. I do like a little bit of exposure to him in the flex. Nothing crazy, but if I'm sitting around in that price range, and I think I'll rotate the players at his price out. I think Philly's just an interesting run team, right? We'll see Scott get a touchdown or two. We'll see Kenneth get a touchdown or two. And then, one day it'll be Jalen Hurts rushing for 2 or 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
And then you'll have Miles Sanders. He'll have his due. But I think the news is that if Miles Sanders or Hurts are crushing, like we already have exposure to Hurts. Sanders, if he gets his due, it's going to be, 2 touchdowns, 110 yards. So I'll probably have him at captain anyways, right? So I don't mind that. Miles Sanders, Jalen Hurts lineup with 4 San Francisco 49ers might be an interesting way to kind of build. But other than that, I don't think I'm going to be getting much exposure to any of these guys. I like Miles Sanders. Honestly, I think it's good. Kenneth and Boston Scott both scored last week because jack their price up. It just eliminates them from my player pool pretty much. I really don't think I'm going to have exposure to either.
Yeah, and the one thing that really bothers me about a guy like Miles Sanders is he's talented. Clearly, he's great if they utilized him more. But he could get vultured from 3 dudes on the 1 yard line: Kenneth Gainwell, Boston Scott, and Jalen Hurts, like you said. And that kind of scares me away from him at 6,200. But I will play him at captain. Let's go to wide receivers. So AJ Brown 9,200, Devontae Smith 8,800. That's like that's it. Like there's really you got Quez Watkins at 1,800, and that's a pretty good value actually. He's popping in the optimizers right now. We'll see kind of where that median projection levels out to as we get closer. But AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, I'm interested in both of these guys at captain. The hard part is going to be stacking these guys along with Jalen Hurts. You're going to have to do something interesting at the captain spot to make that happen, or fade CMC. So what do we do with AJ Brown here? What do we do with Devontae Smith? Both incredible options, and I love these guys, but I don't know how I'm going to fit 2 of them together with Jalen Hurts. It's going to be kind of hard.
Yeah, man. The good news is I don't think you necessarily need to do that with these 2 guys. I think earlier in the season it was easier for both of them to go off, but at this point they're kind of alternating. I kind of prefer Devontae Smith, and it's not just because of his price. I might be a little biased here, being a Bama fan, but they play together. Jalen Hurts, Devontae Smith, and the year that Hurts got benched for Tua in the championship game. So they have a chemistry. We've seen it before. AJ Brown, like he'll get like a cramp in the middle of a game or something, and then you'll just see Devontae Smith get like 15 consecutive targets, right?
Yeah.
So like we know that their comfortability levels there. I love Devontae Smith, captain, flex. I think he's going to be one of my primary guys that I'll be building around. But again, the same can be said for AJ Brown. I think both these guys have similar ceilings. But AJ Brown's a grown ass man. Like he's like a fast Debo. I don't even know how to describe some of these wide receivers anymore. Like AJ Brown has legit 3-4 touchdown upside as well. So, but to your point, these guys are both going to be on the field 95% of the time. They're each going to split like 70% of the targets, and the other 30% are going to go to everybody else on the team.
Yeah.
Quez Watkins is going to be the next guy who's projected at a decent amount of points, and that's because he's the next highest wide receiver rate. 50% of the snaps. So after then, it's just an absolute drop off. Now at what is he, $1,800? At $1,800, I'm probably going to have a decent amount of him as well. Right now, again, there's just not clear value, especially if everybody's planning on playing, which I expect them to. Quez Watkins could be a guy that has a touchdown upside. And then the last guy I'm moderately interested in is Zach Pascal. He just has underrated blocking skills. And again, NFC Championship game, blocking skills is how you get yourself on the field. All he needs is one opportunity. And, I know it was week 8, but if he ends up with 1 touchdown, $800, that's exactly what we need.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, if you look at the targets that these guys are getting, it's just insane. I mean, Devontae Smith, 10, 8, 13, 12. And look at this. I mean, basically he's getting 8. He's gotten 8 targets every week except for that Houston week. And, similar with AJ Brown, not quite as many targets, but I mean, kind of 6, 10, 9, 8, 16, 6, 10. Anyways, look, I really like both of these guys, and you're going to have to find ways to get them in. I feel like one of these dudes is just going to end up under 40% owned and like under 10% in the captain because you just can't fit them in. let's go to San Francisco's wide receivers here. There's really not a whole lot to talk about. You got Debo at 8,400 and Brandon Ayuk at 5,800. Eagles have, they got Darius Slay and James Bradbury. That's pretty damn impressive corners. Juwan Jennings gets maybe 30% of the snaps, 40%. I think he was at 45%. Let me look that up actually. Not a lot, basically. He's basically getting, between 40 to 45% recently, before Debo came back or after Debo came back. So I'm only interested in really Debo Samuel and Brendan Ayuk here. Ayuk at 5,800 is interesting. I think he's a great captain option. He's a great flex option, but it's not a great matchup for both of these guys, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So look, Debo Samuel, I think his benefit is he's not always going to have a corner on him. He will line up in the backfield pretty consistently. We've talked about that multiple times. So doing things like that, I think Kyle Shanahan's going to be able to keep some of the strengths of the Philly defense off of him. So obviously we like Debo Samuel. I think you can play him at captain, and then he's just priced nicely enough that he gives you a lot of flexibility as well. You're still going to have to figure out if you're fading somebody because 8,400 is still a little bit, but he's we all know who Debo Samuel is. He can end up with 2 rushing touchdowns. But I do like your take about Brandon Ayuk. I think because of the matchup, people are going to actually sleep on him a little bit. I think everyone's going to kind of go obvious Jalen Hurts, Brock Purdy, George Kittle, Debo Samuel, and then A.J. Brown or Smith, right? I think people are going to forget about Ayuk. Hopefully, James Bradbury and Darius Slay do too. I know that the matchup is tough, but if he's coming in at 25% owned, that's a guy who again has 2 touchdown upside. He is 100+ yard upside. He can easily get, we see it right there, 12 targets. I know that's at the high end of his production, but this is it, man. This is the NFC Championship game. If you're not going to put everything on the line here, I do think that Kyle Shanahan is going to get Ayuk involved. And 5,800, he gives you a lot of flexibility. And then, I think you're a little bit lower on Juwan Jennings than maybe I am. But again, at 2,400, I am comfortable getting some exposure to him. We did see on Sunday a couple Brock Purdy was just dumping the ball off to him. We saw him get involved. And again, 4.6 points might be enough at his price to pay off that price tag, especially with the kickers kind of being that 4K and 4,200.
Yeah,
you might need that pricing to build appropriately.
Any interest in Ray McLeod? I mean, he's not going to be on the field a lot, really, but he is involved in special teams, and maybe he gets one opportunity at a trick play or an end around at $400. Hey, it might be worth it in a game like this where there's just no value that we're really, really comfortable with. Thoughts on Ray?
Yeah, man. Again, so this would be a matchup that if the guy's going to see the field, I don't mind getting a little bit of exposure to him, especially at $200-$400. Ray might be an interesting guy to bring along if you're running a Niners defense. He's punt returner, kick returner. He breaks one back and get the double stack points. I know that's a long shot, but that's the kind of shit that's going to happen that we need to be prepared for. Now, Danny Gray, I will draw the line there. He won't see any lineups. I doubt he'll be active.
Yeah, it's Debo and Ayuk, and then Ayuk is really just the only true wide receiver guy. Debo's going to be moved around. They're going to put him in motion. They're going to put him in the backfield. They're going to put him in the slot. Brandon Ayuk's going to be out there on the outside just chilling. He's always going to be out there pretty much every play. So that makes me really interested in him at 5,800, although it's not a great matchup. Let's go to tight ends. George Kittle, our boy. Actually, I'm going to throw a couple other guys in here just in case, just to make everybody happy here. George Kittle, 7,800, had an incredible game last week. That one-handed tip drill off his helmet play, that pretty much won him the game if you really look at it. I mean, that was an incredible play. And look, he's priced up a little bit more now. I think he's typically around, right around 7K, but now he's at 7,800. I think you have to try to prioritize him. But what are your thoughts on him in this matchup here, man? $7,800.
Yeah, I like George Kittle. I think I mean, again, we talked about it earlier. You're going to have to decide if you want to play McCaffrey and fade one of the quarterbacks. And right now, it's kind of one of the ways that I'm going to be looking to build. So I'm thinking of stacking CMC and George Kittle, CMC and Debo Samuel. But we George Kittle seems to be really comfortable with Brock Purdy since he's come in. Bro, I had Kittle on my regular season fantasy team. Like if Purdy would have been starting all year, Kittle might have ended with the greatest tight end season of all time. So he's gonna get involved. I think you got to play him. Like, don't overthink it. Play Kittle if you can. Get some captain exposure to him. He's cheap enough to give you a little bit of flexibility in your flex spots.
I think this is a good opportunity for Kittle captain, CMC in the flex or something to that effect, or Debo, and then run it back with 4 Eagles. 7,800 is a pretty decent price to throw the guy at captain. And that's what I'm talking about. Is there's a lot of these options between 6, 7K up to like 9K that I think we can try to fit in there at captain with high upside. George Kittle gets you, 6 receptions, 100 yards, and 1 touchdown. Hey, man, 7,800, you can fit those guys in the flex that you want. The interesting thing with Kittle here is we know he's got 2 touchdown upside. Every single time he steps up there, it's 2 touchdown upside. You have to ask yourself, all right, can this guy score 2 touchdowns? All right, if he can, then I want to put him at captain or at least get a little bit of exposure to him. Let's go to the other side. Speaking of 2 touchdown upside, Dallas Goedert at 6,800. Man, that seems like pretty damn low for him. He's getting involved quite a bit. He's getting targets, and he's a touchdown threat. Man, to me, Goddard at captain, Goddard in the flex, I'm all about it. I don't know what his ownership's going to be, but if he's under like 40% ownership, I might absolutely jam him into a ton of lineups because I think there's leverage to be had there. Thoughts?
If I was looking at the slate, I would initially expect Dallas Goedert to be one of the top owned captain plays just because of his price and his projected points, right? But we know that's not going to happen because we got Jalen Hurts, you got Brock Purdy, Christian McCaffrey on the slate, AJ Brown, Devontae Smith. Man, he's been getting involved, and it seems like Jalen Hurts is really comfortable with him. And I expect them to continue to target him. If he, let's put it this way, if he gets 16.8 points on a slate with pricing as tight as it is, he probably will still be the optimal captain at $6,800. So I think you have to play him at captain a lot, and I think you have to get a decent amount of exposure to him at the flex. So I think the pivot off of him, if he becomes pretty chalky, is what Miles Sanders, about the same price. So
yeah,
that's really the only other way to go if he comes in over 50% owned for whatever reason.
All right, let's go to kicker here, and we got Jake Elliott at 4,200 and Robbie Gould at 4,400. Is there a chance that this turns into a defensive struggle and maybe we see this hit the under where you're going to want kickers involved here?
Absolutely. I think both teams, we already know the San Francisco 49ers have an excellent defense. In Philly, they've been pretty impactful defensively all season long. So this could be a game where you could even think about fading both kickers, or fading both quarterbacks, and maybe paying or spending a little bit more attention or time building with the kickers and the defenses. I don't think I'm going to have much exposure to both in my lineups, but I do think one of these will end up being in the optimal.
Just an early look at things on a Tuesday. It looks like their median projections are pretty low considering a kicker. They're right in that 6-point range. Usually you're seeing 7, high 7s. And considering that they're 44 and 4,200, that kind of I like to see these guys around 4K or 3,800, but I don't know. It's kickers. They shouldn't even be involved in DFS at all. Let's go to defense. Eagles defense 3,600, 49ers defense 3,800. I feel like this is pretty low priced for these defenses in a game that I really do think is not going to be a shootout. I think it's going to be a tough, hard-nosed game, and I don't see I could see this game being like 10-7 at halftime or something. So thoughts on these Eagles and 49ers? They're priced right around the same. Maybe you can rotate these guys out quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think both these defenses have a higher floor than some of the other value that we've been forced to look at their same price. Like, I may want more exposure to the Eagles defense than I do to Boston Scott. 5 or 6 sacks, which against a rookie quarterback isn't unlikely. So both of these defenses are in play. I think you can play both of them. Just understand what that means for the rest of your roster construction.
That's one thing we got to bring up. I mean, yeah, Purdy has looked great. I think he's a solid quarterback. But look, at the end of the day, he's a rookie quarterback, and this might be the best secondary he's played all year. Even going up against Dallas, he didn't look great. He just didn't look incredible. They won the game. That's all that really matters. But going up against this Eagles defense, to me, it seems like there's an opportunity for turnovers to happen in this game. All right, let's get to our captain option and our crown their ass.
Now, if you want to crown them, then crown their ass.
Ellie, you're going Devontae Smith. I'm going Dallas Goedert. Now, look, I really wanted to get more 49ers involved here, but just the pricing on these guys, I can't overlook the pricing on Dallas Goedert here. When I was building with all of these different captains, nothing felt great except for when I got to guys like Smith and Goedert. So thoughts on these guys, and then where do we go, in other areas? Like, what are some of your other favorite guys?
Yeah, I think these two are just pretty obviously 3 touchdown upside guys, and they're priced nicely. But I on the other side of the ball, I think we gotta keep in mind Deebo Samuel was a great captain play, and George Kittle. I think those 4 will probably be the majority of my captain exposure, but I'll sprinkle in a little bit of Miles Sanders, and then I want to see where Brock Purdy comes in, because he does make for an interesting captain. I think you can probably do 1-5 with him at captain and just stack up the Eagles, but that's only if he's closer to like 10-15% owned at the captain max.
Yeah, and we can't forget about AJ Brown here, because in my opinion, AJ Brown and CMC obviously, but AJ Brown has one of these ceilings that you just can't underestimate. He's got 30 fantasy point upside, and I don't know how often he's going to do that, but like, he's got that upside, and you got to always, you can't forget about him. And look, he's only $200 cheaper than Purdy. So I like what you were saying about Purdy. The one thing about Hurts here at captain, he's going to be popular, but if you get one of those rushing touchdowns with Jalen Hurts, most likely he's going to be the optimal guy. Those rushing touchdowns for quarterbacks absolutely change everything. It seems like it's not that big of a deal, but all those points going to one guy, all 6 points going to one guy, that's a huge deal, as opposed to the 4 points and the 6 points he throws the touchdown to. That's a huge deal. All right, let's get to our fades. Not a whole lot to talk about here.
We couldn't do diddly poo.
Ellie, you're not doing any fades. I'm if I had a gun to my head and somebody said fade one player on the slate, I'd probably pick Miles Sanders. But I do want to get some of him at captain. My point here is I'm not going to go super heavy across the board on these Eagles running backs. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think Miles Sanders the captain is probably the easiest way to hedge that. I think you can have a little bit of exposure just because the off chance yet he can still have 80 yards and a touchdown, and a 6,800 or whatever he's at. That'll probably end up in the optimal. But other than that, I'm right with you. I don't think I'm going to have Boston Scott or Kenneth Gainwell at all. What
I might do is, throw Miles Sanders in my cash build. Or if I'm playing, the 2-game slate, maybe have some more Miles Sanders in that, and then just fade him in tournaments. That might be what I end up doing here, minus some captain plays with him. All right, let's get to our lineup build. When you hit the button, this is what happens. Jalen Hurts at captain, Quez Watkins, Miles Sanders, Goddard, Purdy, and AJ Brown. Guess what? No CMC here. And when I was crunching on Fantasy Cruncher, the best lineup, the highest projected lineup, didn't have CMC either. So that's usually not the case. We usually see CMC as the optimal captain, or at least in the flex. So what does that say to you? I mean, I know it's earlier in the week, but does that mean like, hey, maybe we can play with not getting him in like every single one of our lineups?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think just taking a salary out gives you a lot of flexibility, but if people are kind of new to using optimizers, it's really easy to forget that you don't have a player in your lineup. So like, look, I don't know, man, I'm not going to overthink it. I'm going to try and get as much CMC as I possibly can. he's still the best path of winning for the 49ers. So
Yeah.
if Field comes low on him, I'll be heavy. Otherwise, I'm still going to get like 50-55%. I think you just got to try and jam him in if you can.
I feel like no McCaffrey at captain and getting above the field in the flex is the way I'm going. And maybe similar with Jalen Hurts as well. All right, let's build our own here. So this is like a halfway decent lineup, but I want to build a cash lineup together. It's early in the week. We got to kind of see if there's any value that comes out. But as of right now, I feel like Jalen Hurts at captain is probably the way to go. He's cheaper than CMC and still has that same similar upside, and he's a quarterback. So that's probably a pretty good option to put in cash. So where do we go next? We probably want to put CMC in here as well. And what do we do? Do we go Debo? Do we go kicker? Like, what are you thinking here for this core? It's probably like a guy. It's either Debo or Kittle, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think you can go either. I think I would lean towards Kittle a little bit more just because he's cheaper, but Debo's fine as well.
What about Goddard in cash with that price tag?
Then let's do Debo and Goddard. How does that sound?
We might be able to pull that off. Let's see. All right, so we got 6,500 for 2 spots. Now this feels like a kicker and like a punt that allows you to jam in a lot of core or raw points, right? So do you want to go kicker or what?
You want to?
Oh, I'm sorry.
You want to?
Did I do that
throw
wrong?
in Debo?
Dude, I'm sorry.
No worries.
Devontae. All right, similar here. But what do we do in this other spot?
Yeah, I think we start with the kicker. You want to? I really do think Philly is going to be leading this game, so I think you can throw in Jake Elliott. He's probably the safest bet.
2,700.
What is 2,700?
I mean, it doesn't get you a lot. It's Jawan Jennings, Quez Watkins sort of thing. Now, for a cash build, look, we got to get McCaffrey. I feel like we got to get Debo. Like, get those raw points in, and then if you take a 0 from one of these dudes, it might be okay in Showdown. Who would you go with here? Would you go Quez Watkins? I know that sounds crazy. People tuning in
probably would.
People tuning in going, why the fuck are these guys playing Quez Watkins in cash? It's just a punt. It's just going to allow us to get those higher end dudes. I don't know. Right now, I think this is okay. I'm not going to enter this as my cash lineup, but maybe we'll see how the week goes. We'll see if any value comes out. Let's do tournament lineups because that's why we're really here. Do you want to do a Jalen Hurts or do you want to do a CMC? Let's do a CMC tournament lineup and see how that goes. Right?
Let's do it. Let's go CMC and then let's see if we can get 5 Eagles on this. Let's go Jalen Smith. Jalen Hurts. Yeah, it sticks. Jalen Hurts, Devontae Smith.
Okay. Who else?
Daniel Goddard.
Dallas Goddard, but yeah, same thing.
Dallas, man, what the hell? All right, and then let's go Quez, and can we get Jake Elliott?
Yep, you sure can.
And then you can also go Robbie Gould too. I think I'd probably run both those lineups, to be honest with you.
Yeah, you can go either.
What can you get up to? So if you go to Jake Elliott, can you go up from Smith to AJ Brown?
$300. Let's see.
No, not quite.
No, you can't. Not quite. Almost. But see, with McCaffrey at captain, man, I'm not messing around with it. It's just too damn expensive, and there's no value here. All right, so who do you want to go with? You want to go with Devontae Smith, your guy?
Yeah, let's do Devontae.
All right, who else? Jalen Hurts and McCaffrey, right? Let's just put that in.
Jalen Hurts, McCaffrey. Let's go Kittle.
Okay. Next.
I mean, I like Quez Watkins again in this lineup. Damn it.
4,800. We're right in that same sort of spot. Kenneth Gainwell. Both kickers, both defenses. Save all these.
Go down to the Philly defense. Can we get off and to anything a little bit more comfortable from Quez?
3K.
No,
Juwan Jennings.
Get Juwan Jennings.
Yeah, doesn't really do much for you. So look, I mean, we almost have to choose between Kittle or McCaffrey. Do you want to like go from Kittle to Goddard, or McCaffrey to somebody else?
Let's do this. Let's go from McCaffrey to Eli Mitchell.
All right, I love that.
Leave Kittle, and then throw in AJ Brown if you can.
I love that. AJ Brown, Hurts, Devontae Smith, 3,600.
Philly, can you get the Philly defense?
We sure can. Look at that. 0 salary remaining.
That's a nice lineup.
4-2 with Philly defense, not bad. Let's do this. Instead of Kittle, let's go to Debo. If we're gonna fade, if we're gonna fade CMC, Debo is probably one of the guys that's gonna benefit quite a bit, along with Eli Mitchell. And then let's get Goddard and see what that does for us. 5,400. So, this is a pretty balanced lineup here. You end up with, now, it's not quite worth it. You get Gainwell, you get kickers, you get defenses. So maybe not like super ideal. Goddard's kind of like, it's a pretty good price for him. Would you go anywhere else instead of Goddard so you can get a little bit better in that last spot?
Yeah, maybe go down to Sanders, Miles Sanders, and
All
just
right.
see what that gives us.
6K, does that do anything
6K.
for us? Ayuk. All right.
Brandon Ayuk.
That makes it kind of worth it. So if you're fading Christian McCaffrey, you got Eli Mitchell, Debo Samuel, and Ayuk. That is actually that's a good way to go. And then you got Jalen Hurts, Devontae Smith at captain, along with Miles Sanders in the flex. That's a pretty decent lineup there. I'm gonna save that one. All right, let's go to Dallas Goedert at captain, and then we'll start to wrap this bad boy up. Obviously, Kittle, Debo, there's a lot of other great options at captain, but because we chose these dudes as our crown their ass, we're going to throw them in. Let's go with our core here. Hurts, McCaffrey. Where do we go here next? If we got Goddard at captain, do you want to pair one of these other dudes, pass catchers from the Eagles with him, or do you want to go to the other side like Ayuk or Debo or one of these other guys?
Let's try and get Debo and see what we have left over.
9K.
Can we get AJ Brown? No, that's
No.
God, no.
You could
can't
get Devontae
Devontae.
Smith and just say screw it and rotate out this last spot. Go Warner or Dwelly? What were you talking about earlier? You were talking about Warner?
Warner's going to be on the field more. Dwelly, he may get a target in his 5% of the snaps, but they're both the same price. I think you can rotate them both, run them both.
So you're just saying screw it at this point. If you pull him out, Devontae Smith, could we go?
I got it.
Where could we go here?
You either got to go Miles Sanders or Jake Elliott, right?
Yeah, I guess you.
Well, I guess you can go Niners Philly defense if you want to.
Let's put in Jake Elliott and see what happens. 4,800. Kenneth Gainwell. It's pretty lame. It's almost better to just say screw it and get Kyle Juszczyk or something. Almost, Yeah. I know Gainwell can go off, but 4,800, man, I don't know. Do you want to try anything else here? Do you want to go like AJ Brown or something?
Yeah, let's build one with AJ Brown, and then let's try one with Brock Purdy.
All right. So AJ Brown, captain. Let's hit optimize and see what it says. Quez Watkins is popping. Ayuk, Sanders, McCaffrey, Hurts. Let's lock in these two guys and let's build our own. Where do we go here, man? Do you want to do like a 2-4? You want to get 4 Niners?
Yeah. Can we? Throw in Brock. Let's see what happens.
Nothing that we want is going to happen, unfortunately. There's not really enough value. Like I'd say probably George Kittle here. 6K.
Yeah, and then probably Debo.
No, dude, we got 6K left.
Then Eli Mitchell is too expensive.
Yeah, we can. Then $800. You just punt here at the last spot. It sucks. Pascal, Ray McLeod. That sucks ass.
Well, here. What about this? So instead of pull out Ray and Eli, let's put in Robbie Gould.
Okay.
1,600 and Kyle
Juszczyk.
J.
Yeah. Kyle J.
That's rough, but I don't mind it as a 2-4, intentionally trying to get 4 Niners, I guess.
Yeah. It seems like to me it's a lot easier to get 4 Eagles in your builds.
Yeah.
You know, there's just more options there. And I think the biggest thing is that Dallas Goedert's $1,000 cheaper than Kittle. That's a huge difference. All right, last one. Let's go Purdy. Where do you want to go? Do you want to go 4 Niners here? Do you want to go like Ayuk? Do you want to go Debo? Maybe we fade McCaffrey in this one?
Let's do you want to fade? Yeah, let's fade McCaffrey. So let's go obviously let's go Hurts, and then let's go can we go Debo Kittle?
I'm sure we can. Let's try it. Debo Kittle 8,700.
What happens if you put the Niners defense in? What does that leave us with?
Kicker, most likely. Who else can you get? Gainwell, but you probably end up with like Jake Elliott here. You got Jalen Hurts, Jake Elliott, and then 4 Niners to run it back. Hey man, look, I'm not super excited. I'm not going to hand build at all, I don't think, for this. I think I'm going to use the optimizer for this one. That's not very fun to build those lineups, in my opinion. But the best lineups that we seem to build were those Goddard, Devontae Smith, and maybe even try an Eli Mitchell one if you're really trying to get crazy. What are your thoughts on that? How are you going to build when the time comes?
Well, so the first thing is I know we didn't do this a lot when we're building right now. We are going to be a little bit more balanced when it comes to building with Brock Purdy. I know we didn't have any of him at flex right now, but that doesn't mean we're fading him. This was more just kind of get a feel for the slate and understand how the pricing worked out. But I think to answer your question, right, we're gonna have to build balance. Like we didn't try out a bunch of captain options from the Niners, but we will have those captain options.
Yeah.
Yes, it's easier to get to Goddard, but I'm still gonna build with Kittle. I'm still gonna build with Debo. Those two specifically, and then kind of sprinkle in some other captain options here. So I think attack this slate with maybe the lower contestants. If you normally do the $15 entries or $5 entries, run some 10 cent, run some 25 cent, get a feel for it, get more lineups in that you're comfortable with than trying to run a dart in that you either win or you lose everything that you put in, which is the one entry. So that's my input on this slate.
Final score prediction and low owned guy that can score.
22-16. Jesus. Philly. Low owned guy that I think can score is Quez Watkins.
I'm going like 28-18. Something weird like that, and I think this is an Eli Mitchell touchdown game. Finally, let's get it. Let's make it happen. All right, we will see you guys for the AFC Championship Showdown as well as the 2-gamer. We'll see you later.